Bulavinaka, my name is Winnie Ferretti Nainova. I come from Rewa in Fiji, and I've been blessed to be hired for a short contract with the Pacific Secretariat, the SPC, to set up a Pacific Islands Oceans Decade Collaborative Center in the Pacific. So with this Oceans Decade, that is from 2021 to 2030, you have it's UNESCO led. So the IOC, the main organizing unit, sits in Paris, but of course, because that's where the UNESCO headquarters is, but of course there are regional centers. So this is what I have to do in the next few months to set up the centers. It's also fortunate that I've had experience as an environmental specialist for the last 11 years with the UNDP, and I worked very closely with the Ministry of Environment, climate change, and in the ocean space for the 14 Pacific Island countries that we serve. So praying and working hard that at the end of my contract in a few months' time, it will already be set up. So people are saying, why another center? Why another arm? It's because of the Oceans Decade. Well, the Oceans Decade, it's an investment of time and finances, financially. So we want to have as many organizations, villages, communities, governments as possible, many as possible, from within the Pacific Ocean, applying for the UNESCO Oceans Decade funding to carry out projects or programs. At the moment, and the next call is due by mid-December, so I'm currently contacting possible organizations or communities that would like to apply, encourage them and help them submit applications by mid-December. Anything to do with the oceans, management and conservation of oceans.
Now, I know you mentioned to the audience here, like why people call you Auntie Winnie or why you would prefer to be called Auntie Winnie. But for the audience's sake, why do you prefer being called Auntie Winnie?
It's really, for me, it was a surprise that when I joined UNDP 12 years ago now, or 13, we are not allowed to, it was not encouraged, or maybe it was not practiced. You don't call anybody sir, you don't call anybody madam within the office. You don't call anybody Mrs. or Mr. Even our boss at that time, even when we meet the number one of UNDP in the world, we just call them by their first names. And it simplifies things. Because when you write letters, you don't have to worry, dear Mr. or Honorable, or you just write, dear Helen, if it was being written to Miss Helen of New Zealand, Helen Clark, and you just sign off your name. So when I joined, I was 54 years old by then, just finished a PhD, and there was a niece of my brother-in-law. She was in the office, Lorraine, and she said to me, Auntie Winnie, I call you Auntie Winnie at home. How can I call you Winnie in the office? And the next thing, that Auntie Winnie that started 11 years ago has moved into various fields. So I'm not surprised that people know me as Auntie Winnie. They don't even know my second name. So it's kind of a sign of respect and just acknowledging that I'm an old woman that cannot be called by first name anymore.
Like with your vast experience in the climate change space and conservation space and really just overall space here in the Pacific when it comes to development. How important is this conference's theme of merging traditional knowledge and science?
Lovely. From a personal perspective, my first degree was in pure chemistry and biology. So I mainly taught chemistry at the Fiji Institute of Technology. And then I got a scholarship. This is way back in the mid-90s when environmental conservation was not even really there in Fiji. So I called my old university professor from USP, who was then the head of environmental science unit in Wollongong. I told him, Dr. Morrison, I have a scholarship, but I don't have a university. He said, come into environmental science. But I know nothing about environmental science. I've just been teaching analytical chemistry and biochemistry. And that's, I think, launched me off into a different direction. So did environmental science, still mainly science. And then the PhD scholarship came up. So when I went to New Zealand, my main supervisor, Professor Bruce Glavovich, he said to me, Winnie, because I wanted to do something in chemistry, he said, do something useful for your people. Like what? Do traditional ecological knowledge. I almost died because I went to a boarding school that we were not allowed to speak in Fijian. Boarding school, we spoke in English when the lali went at 8 until Friday. And my Fijian was not very good. I lived in a town, was brought up in town, and this guy is telling me to look at how traditional ecological knowledge and social capital of the Itauke people affected marine conservation. That was the most rewarding thing because I discovered myself. And even at that time, the indigenous values, it was not really as recognized as it is now, which is so wise. In the work with UNDP, when I traveled through the 10 Pacific Island countries, often went into a community and you see a relic there. That's a desalination plant, or that machinery was bought by the Tranda, or that project is finished. Those words show that we went in with preconceived ideas of what should be done at community level for the tick in the box for our organization. We have to do what the community wants for sustainability. Part of the features of a proposal is that you must write a paragraph, a page, half a page, 2 pages on sustainability and exit strategy. You don't need these two if you do what the villagers want. But sometimes the community wants, it doesn't match with what is in your organization's box. At the like now it's coming together, and you have to use your wisdom then, or the wisdom of them, those who you work with, even the community, to try and marry the two. So you come up with a project that tick the organization's work and the community. You don't have to persuade them to do it because they will just do, because they see the amount of fish that's increasing, the spillover into other marine areas, the things that are growing well. They see some economic gains that comes into their families. So I'm so happy now that it's been brought back. The recognition, even for Oceans Decade, with the science we need for the oceans we want, they are emphasizing that we must recognize all forms of science, traditional science and indigenous science. Some may say it's not science. No, it is science. It has to do with observation, but it's more beautiful than science done in the lab or in a very short type of observation, because that's been time tested through the centuries. and people have survived. Of course, now they have to deal with the escalating effects, the non-predictive cyclones and the sea level rise, but there are some knowledge there that can be usefully utilized. So one of the big statements about engaging IPLCs, Indigenous people and local communities, in this Oceans Decade, just 3 words. Last week was the Deaf Language Week. So the 3 words for engaging Indigenous people and local communities: recognize, respect, and engage Indigenous people and local communities. Recognize, respect, and engage with Indigenous people and local communities, from co-designing the work right to co-implementation, right to the end.